Okay, let's start the chapter. In this chapter, which is chapter 13, is importing, exporting, and counter trade. We'll talk about to continue the same like chapter 12. In chapter 12, um, was mostly about exporting as just one of the range of strategies, options for profiting from international expansion. Now, in the chapter 13 is more concerned with the nuts and bolts of exporting or importing. What's the details when you do an export and import? What's the activity you need to do here? And the previous chapter was just we spoke about exporting and importing. So we look at the detail of how to export or what are we supposed to do when we are importing. We also appreciate the exporting is not just a big companies. It can, many small companies do a well into exporting also. Now, the situation, we can later on explain the situation of a friend of mine who was in the business of banana and exporting the banana from a country to another country. And he's located in Canada. The overview, the situation facilitating more global trade. The volume of export activity in the world economy is increasingly increasing as exporting has become easier these days. The gradual declining of the trade barriers and the various regional economic agreement like NAFTA, whatever the name is there, different agreement, have a significantly increased the export opportunities. The modern communication, the transport and transportation technology have also alleviated the logistical problem and mitigated them associated with exporting. And recently, with the Silk Road and the big initiative that is done by China. Now, the situation is not that easy. There's lots of work in exporting. Exporting remained a challenge for many firms. Smaller enterprise can find the process intimidating or too much. There is a host of unanticipated problem often associated with doing business in foreign countries. Exporting has, we said promises and pitfalls, or instead of promises, you say opportunities and difficulties. The great promise of exporting is that larger revenue and profiting opportunity are to be found in a foreign market. That's the main thing you do exporting. Improving export performance, impediment or the obstruction to exporting is the simple lack of knowledge of the opportunities available. So if you don't know if the opportunity is not there, so you don't do the export. Exporting information source you can find in DFIAT, which is strategies, other sources, and the DFIAT is stands for the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. And you can find it also in the export managing companies. The common pitfall include poor market analysis. You don't understand the market and you walk in there. Poor understanding of competitive conditions in the foreign market. You're not aware that there is a big competition there. Failure to customize the product to the need of foreigner customer. Lack of an effective distribution program you might have. Poorly executed promotion in the foreigner market, and the problem is others more than anything else that obvious for a trader or businessman person is the problem securing financing payments. The difficulty also include novice, the new people, exporters tend to underestimate the time and the expertise needed to cultivate a business in a foreign country. It takes time and effort. Tell me about it. Few realize the amount of management resources that have to be dedicated to these activities. Many foreign customers require face-to-face negotiation on their home turf, and this is one of the issues that we face in technology evaluation centers. Now, exporting difficulties also include an exporter may have to spend months learning about a country trade regulations, business practices, and more before a deal can be closed. Exports often face a volumes of papers, lots of paperwork, complex formalities, and many potential delays and errors. It's also information difficulties, sometimes the time lag, the difference of timing, it might cause some communication difficulties or the information details difficulties also. One big impediment to exporting is the simple lack of knowledge of the opportunity available. As we said in few slides earlier, there is you're not aware of such an opportunity. Often there is, and we do that in the entrepreneurship, that the process of finding how to find an opportunity. Um, the other thing is often there are many markets for a firm's product, but because they are in a country separated from the firm home base by culture, maybe language, distant, and time, the firm does not know of them. I will give an example of each one of them. The way to overcome ignorance to collect information, also bias information, how you stay away from bias information, and how to stay away from ignorance. More popularities as EMC export management company is a case which is more popular as known as a trading company, known in Japan as Sogo Shusha in Japan. EMC are exporters specialized in who act as the exporter marketing department or international department. This is a body who help you. They find a buyer in Japan usually, or you help you also to export from Japan. They start exporting operation from a firm with the understanding that the firm will make over operation after they are well established. In another type, startup services are performed with the understanding that the EMC will have a continued responsibility for selling firm products. There is another samples we can speak about it, especially in the field of IT or food. But how an export and import get financed, which is that's the main issue that we gonna look in this slide. Well, the first thing that's happened, the importer pays for the goods. That's straightforward. Then we have the Canadian exporter. So the importer pays to the Canadian exporter, and the Canadian exporter, which is ship the goods after being paid to French importer. So here we have a France and Canada between French importer and Canadian importer. The other option is exporter ship the goods, which is the Canadian ships the good. And then when the French importer gets it, then the importer pays after the goods are received and he gets his money, the Canadian. And usually the standard, you start first with this stage, the first phase, and then you do the second phase after the trust gets built up. This is the tradition in the market, but some of them will only stick with the first one, and some of them might only stick with the second one. Now, there is something called also a letter of credit, which is issued by bank. When you are trying to export something, you're asking for a letter of credit from the importer, which is issued by a bank at a request of an importer. The letter of credit states that the bank will pay a specified sum of money to a beneficiary, normally the exporter, or a presentations of particular on a presentation of particular specified document. There is certain document signed between the importer and the exporter. And then the importer goes to this bank and says, listen, this is the papers. Once I receive these things, uh, I need you to pay it. So here issue the bank a letter of credit for it. Now, the letter of credit using a third party usually, and it's done is like importer obtain, which is the French importer, obtain a bank's promise to pay on importer behalf. Now, he might put a deposit or he has a line of credit, whatever the situation. And then the bank promises the exporter to pay on behalf of, which is promised the Canadian. Now the Canadian feel more secure. So what he does, he goes and exporter, which is the Canadian, ships to the bank, trusting bank promises to pay because they trusting, so they shipping it. And that bank pays the exporter, and then a bank gives the merchandise to the French importer, and the importer pays the bank. It could be a bank, could be a financial centers also. Now, other thing that we need to know is the draft and bill of landing. A draft is an order written by the exporter instructing an importer or an importer agent to pay a specified amount of money at a specified time, also called a bill of exchange. Now, there's something it's called BOL or bill of landing. And usually, if you go to, I don't know, trade, export and import places, then the port, it's kind of a usually a big yellow page, few pages. A document issued to an exporter by a common carrier transportation merchandisers, a, a, a logistic company. It serves as a receipt, a contract, and a document of title. So it's a quite uh, complex, but you can see how these things happening. And if you follow the numbers 1, 2, 3, put it there for you, you can easily find out how is these things done. For example, importer order goods, exporter agree to fill orders, and then importer arrange for a letter of credit, and the list is here. You just need to follow to understand. For example, then the Bank of Paris send a letter of credit to Bank of Montreal, and the list goes on, which is you follow the information here, the international trade transaction, how it's happening between different uh, importer and exporter and local banks. In the previous example, we mentioned one bank. There are two banks, which is they trade the money between them. Now, there is something you heard is a counter trade. Counter trade is alternative means of structuring an international sale when conventional means of payment are difficult, costly, or non-exist. We can bring lots of examples, the Iranian example, the Sudanese example, India, Iran example. These are all Turkey, Syria example. And the example here is Saudi Arabia agreed to buy 10 747 jets from Boeing with a payment of a crude oil at discounted at 10% below the world price. So if they're selling the barrel $100, they will sell it for them at $90 because who is selling Boeing is not into business of oil, so he needs to give him an incentive to take your oil and sell it. This is what, as an example, that's the reason you get 10% discount. So he's making profit from selling the jets and from trading the oil. Now, bar type of counter trade is what we call a barter, is the direct exchange of goods and services between two parties without a cash transaction. Although barter is the simplest arrangement, is not common. It is not common anymore. We see some trade between India and Iran like this happening sometimes. Um, Tea or rice to Iran and Iran exporting oil, but it's a small amount. Then you have the counter purchase. It occurs when a firm agrees to purchase a certain amount of material back from a country to which a sales is made. Usually, these are lots of military equipment. Is when the USA signed a military equipment to sell jets or whatever, they agree that to buy 5% to up to 15 from that country back. Then you have what you call the offset. I'm sorry, in the contract is back from, it occurs when a firm agrees to purchase a certain amount of material back from a country in which the sales is made. But the offset is different. They will buy back from them. So I'm exporting or I'm giving them a manufacturing what they produce there. I'm going to buy something from them, but in the offset, it's a different. It's a similar to counter purchase in so far as one party agrees to purchase good and service with a specified percentage of the proceeds from the original sales. This is very, what I meant here is when the Kuwaiti military, as they do, as agree now, buy jets from USA worth of $1 million, the USA promised that they will buy from Kuwait something worth of 15% of that $1 million. The difference is this party can fulfill the obligation with any firm in the country to which the sales is being made. So they can buy, I don't know, food, all type of food or clothing from Kuwait or animals or whatever, but they don't have to be stuck. In the another one, no, they have to buy from the same factory back. And then you have the switch trading refers to the use of a specialized third-party trading house in the counter trade arrangement. So there is a third party or a third country, and you bring the both and you trade it there. And buybacks, When a firm is built a planet in a country of suppliers, technology, equipment, training, or other services to the country and agrees to take a certain percentage of that planet as a partial payment, as a partial payment for the contract. There, they buy back and they pay. Here, they buy back, but as a partial payment for them. So that's the end of the chapter.